All right, dear ladies and gentlemen, I think we can start now. So my name is Anna Peiko, and I would like to welcome you to the fourth Grow, Learn, Connect webinar. So today is December 17th, which means that this is going to be our last webinar in year 2020. And I would like to thank every single one of you for joining us this year, for putting your trust in our team and for learning with us. But please rest assured, next year we have so much more in store for you. So please stay tuned. And next year, specifically, we will start with a webinar in French. Our French-speaking master trainer, Myrti Shahet, will deliver a webinar for our French-speaking audience. He will talk about engaging participants online. I'm sure that many of you are already familiar with this webinar, but this time it will be delivered in French, and once again for the French-speaking audience. So please mark it in your calendars. If you're interested, it's going to be delivered off our regular schedule on January 14th. Now, on January 21st, we will resume our regular webinars, which we conduct every third Thursday of the month. And this time, we will welcome our legendary Margaret Jackson, who is a GLC master trainer. Yelena Avery will take the floor on February 18th. Her topic is also very exciting. She will talk about how to work with subject matter experts when converting a course into online. So please mark your calendars so you don't miss a single webinar next year. Now, of course, you know that our team is working very hard to improve your experience with the GLC platform, with the Grow, Learn, Connect platform. So we're developing new courses, we're adding new features to our platform. So I just wanted, if you don't mind, to quickly cover a few features or a few opportunities that we have recently added to the platform that you might have overlooked otherwise. So first of all, you can now sign up to be notified of any new courses. If you will go to the Grow, Learn, Connect platform, you will choose the tab Learn and then Learn by Project phase. You will see the competency wheel, which coincides with the phases of the training life cycle, right? So it includes assessing performance needs, designing curricula, and so on and so forth. So right now I'm showing you one of the wedges, which is called Facilitating Learning, and you see that some of the courses have a tag Coming Soon. So that means that these courses are still under development. What you can do is you can go to those specific pages. In this case, these are going to be advanced online facilitation skills and coordinating training programs. So you can visit those pages and sign up to be notified when these courses become available. Or you can simply click on the button, which you can see right now above the competency wheel. So it says sign up to be notified. And this way you will not miss a single course that will become available on the Grow, Learn, Connect platform in the near future. Now, this particular opportunity is not new, but I just wanted to remind you. So if you're attending someone else's training, please visit the directory and leave your feedback about trainer's delivery. In the same manner, if you're a trainer, please invite your trainees to visit your individual page in the directory and also leave their feedback on the website. And we don't want language to be a barrier in this case, so we understand that not everyone speaks English. So your trainees can leave their feedback in whatever language they feel comfortable with. So in this case, you see that the comments were provided in Arabic. One other thing that I wanted to mention is we have added a couple of new filters to the directory of individual professionals. So now you can search for individuals who are certified in designing online learning, as well as those who are certified in facilitating online learning. So both certifications are awarded by the IFC partner, the LPI, the Learning and Performance Institute. So if you need someone to help you with online learning design or facilitation, you can now go to the directory and search for specialists in those areas. On a related note, we also added a filter for signatories to the GLC Principles for Learning. So if you would like to find specialists, to find trainers who have committed to designing and delivering training to the highest standards, you can again search for those individuals in our directory. So becoming a signatory means that the trainer has committed to deliver, as I said, training to the highest standards. right? So if you haven't become a signatory yet, we invite you to become one. But most importantly, we would like you to adhere to those fundamental qualities that make training inclusive, impactful, scalable, and sustainable. And now I would like to welcome our speaker today, Mandy Grant. So Mandy Grant has over 20 years of experience in instructional design, facilitation, as well as management consulting. She's an IFC certified master trainer, and she's also a co-founder of Covenant Consulting. Her company has become one of the first signatories to the GLC Principles for Learning. Mandy, the floor is yours, and I hope everyone enjoys this webinar.
Thank you so much, Anna. Hello, everyone. Let me start share mine. Welcome, everyone. I am so excited about this topic. This is something that has been on my heart and in my passion for several years now, actually probably more than 17 years, actually, online learning. I think it's the most valuable way to learn because I think it offers such a rich way to learn if you do it right. And so I wanted to cover today considerations for moving the classroom online. I actually got my master's back in 2002, before it was even something that you would normally do online. I got it completely online. And I found that I was able to learn through my peers, through my professors, and also learn more within myself as an instructor. As I interacted with the information and interacted with my thought process a lot more thoroughly online. And so I want to share with you some different considerations as you're probably getting a lot of requests for moving things online. And we'll talk about that so that you can help guide your team, guide your clients, guide yourself through this process. Today we're going to talk about advantages and disadvantages, conversion options, needs analysis, and additional considerations. This course comes as a highlight of one of the courses that we're offering online that Anna was talking about that is free for you. So I wanted to just show that to you very quickly, how you get to that. And we're part of the actual learning path of courses we're developing so that you can make those conversions over. So the first one in that. So let me show you how to get to it from, all right. So from the GLC website, you can go to Learn by Project Phase or Learn by Job Function. Let's pick Job Function. And Instructional Designer. Down here, you see Converting Training for Online Learning. If you click on here, you can see the learning path that we have been developing to support you. So this is the first course, Considerations for Moving the Classroom Online. So this is the first one where you'll be learning about all the things to think through before you start designing. Then we did one on doing the live online, which we'll talk about the webinar more based live online learning. Then we have the it's going to be converting the classroom to the 24/7 classroom, and that's more about the asynchronous learning. And then mixing it up is going to be the blended. So there'll be a high-level course in there already. Then we have the one about online learning, then the e-learning, and then the blended. You can also see here we have the webinars that have happened in the past. So we invite you, as Anna said, to go in and access these. They're free. Also sign up to be notified when the other two come online, which will be very shortly. All right, back to the presentation. All right. Let's start off with a few definitions so that we know what we're all talking about. And I don't know if you've had the same experience that I've had. When I've been asked, hey, can you get this training online, right? We're all being asked that because we have a lot of reasons to get it online right about now. People have in their mind, I found, a specific type of way to learn virtually. Maybe something that they've heard about, maybe something they've experienced, and they tend to think that this is the one way that you can do online learning. So, for instance, I've had some clients that took some very, very jazzy gamification, e-learning, self-module. It often happens in something that's more standard that you would take every year, maybe a compliance, maybe computer security, for instance, is a good example that I've seen and that have been around for a while. Computer security and how to keep the risks down on the computer and saving your passwords and that kind of thing. So maybe they'll have some really, really, really fancy thing, and they think that that's what you're going to develop by, next week maybe. Or maybe they think, every online training has to be instructor-led, and it needs to be a webinar. Or maybe they think everything needs to be something that you take on your phone. Well, all of those things are valid. However, you want to be able to show the breadth of the options and begin to do a needs analysis to get them down and consider what it is the best way to train based on their audience, based on their topic, based on their needs, all of those things. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So let's start off with some definitions. And these aren't, the gospel truth on what the definitions are, but they're what we're going to work with from these courses. So first, you've got live online learning. This is primarily instructor-led, and it's interactive. It allows interaction between the participants in real time. So it's similar to this if we had a smaller group and we were doing a lot more interaction, which we'll do a lot of interaction today. But you'd have an instructor, you'd have the ability to ask questions, you'd have the ability to interact between participants and learn similar to what you would in a classroom, except you're not all co-located. That's live online learning. Self-study online learning is self-paced, so you're able to take it whenever you want, wherever you want, and you are not interacting with the trainer at that point because it's something that's just based on the mobile device or your computer, and you can take it on at your leisure. You're learning at different times, different locations, again, not dependent on the trainer. Then you have blended learning. This is a combination of any of the multiple learning options, and you're learning in multiple ways. So we'll talk about this as a way that you can meet the needs, various needs that you may encounter. Let's take a poll and see which you prefer. So if you go over to your chat window, you're going to have a polling section and that will open up. I'm going to open up the first poll, and I'd like to know, when learning virtually, which do you prefer? Live online, self-study, or a blend of both? All right, we've had about half the folks vote. Got 20 more seconds. Five more seconds. All right. Let's see what we've got. All right, it looks like about full results. All right, so it looks like we've got about a third of the group, majority actually, like a blend of both. And I agree. What I've found also is that if you liked either one of the other options, what I found is if you present a blend of both, you appeal to all the audiences. So there were some folks we saw that liked the live online learning. We saw some that liked the self-study, but a blend of both actually appeals to everyone and meets the needs often. So we're going to look at that a little bit more as we go. All right. I would like to see what we think about brainstorming reasons for moving the classroom online. Let's look at non-COVID-19 related, because we all know that is a big reason, a big impetus for moving the classroom online. But let's think about reasons why we might be moving them online for different reasons. So let's go over to our, let's use our chat. Go ahead in your chat and brainstorm reasons for moving the classroom online.
So I see some of the comments that it costs less. You don't have to travel. You can reach a wider audience this way. You can train people in multiple locations. Convenience, flexibility, so these are all some of the factors that are being mentioned in chat. Online classes are easier to combine with everyday work. That's so true. Schedule adaptability, time efficient, yeah, as we mentioned. You can also reach people from different cultures and regions. You can get in touch with, you can even get in touch with very busy lecturer. And you can make it inclusive for women and people who live in rural areas.
Love that.
And in general, it can be just more effective for certain topics, for certain subjects.
Those are some great answers. Thank you for summarizing those for us, Anna. And I think you guys are right. You're beginning to see the reasons why online learning can be so rich. Because we can reach so many and reach each other. And we've really found that over this past year, that need to be able to reach each other and be able to train, and this provides that. This is something I've been trying to convince people of for a long time. So this year has been exciting for me because I have had to push those reasons nearly as much as people are starting to realize it out of necessity. I love that learning at your own pace. That's one of my favorite parts. So let's look at some of the reasons that I had come up with that are very similar to the ones that you did as well. The first thing, decrease that need for a large travel budget. So maybe we didn't have a lot of project managers on here. I didn't hear that one being as popular, but that training budget can be very large if you are traveling, not only bringing your trainer in, but also bringing your trainees in from different regions, different cities, different countries. So you can decrease that budget. You can provide contingency during extreme weather. So maybe this year hasn't been as big of a deal with that, but if you have a winter storm or a tsunami or high winds or hurricanes, you might have some issues where you'd have to quickly move to online learning. What about that regional conflict or those situations that make travel unsafe? So we've had that in some trainings. I've had trainings that have had to be canceled that were in-person training because a region became unsafe and there was political unrest. And so we've had to postpone or change this. you wouldn't do that if you were working online and doing it virtually. Train on this have to travel to train or train. So I know many of you participating. I know that you have been road warriors like I have. I had one summer where I was in an airport really every day, sometimes twice a day, traveling to deliver training, a very short training that needed to be rolled out very quickly all across the country. And so that was something that we could have done virtually. If I could have done a live online training, perhaps by a self-study that they could digest at their own pace, wow, that would have made that summer a whole lot different. I missed a lot of my sister's wedding preparation that summer because I was gone so much. So that would have helped me alleviate the strain. And I'll bet some of you could relate to that as well. Now, you can also scale training quickly to expand your reach. And so maybe you had a small reach for this original training, but now we need to be able to deliver it all across the world or across the region or across the country. And you want to be able to scale that. Well, now you're not having to do that manually. You can do that very quickly with virtual learning. And it's unbound by timing and location. So they can be taking it whenever you want, just like we're doing. We're talking and people are joining from all over the world. Now, some of you might have stayed up a little bit late to do that, or woken up a little bit early, but you were able to join because we were able to pick a time that was somewhat in the middle for everyone. So that echoed a lot of yours, and you had a lot of other good intangibles kind of that were things that you can learn more quickly and better. So thank you so much. That was great advantages. Now let's talk about, in the chat window, I'd like to see what you think about disadvantages. And let's look first to live online learning. So webinar, teleconference-based training where there's a facilitator, but it's live. Go ahead and share your disadvantages to that.
So some of the disadvantages I see: internet connection, language restrictions, limited interaction, again, internet connectivity, power outage. Yeah, it seems like in many regions that can be a great issue. Poor connectivity is mentioned many times. It is not always engaging, decreased participation by trainees. Time management can be another disadvantage. Also, it can be hard to engage participants effectively and very easy for participants to get distracted. It can also get monotonous and kind of one-sided, so there is limited human contact. There can be household disturbances, I guess, like children and things like that. Time zones is an issue, yeah, definitely. It requires more concentration. Also, participants are not always committed, right? Or are not necessarily IT literate enough to gain access easily. It can also be hard to customize. Yeah, there's little interaction compared to face-to-face. Yeah, this is all true. Lots of distractions. Well, there's another comment that people are now getting tired of webinars and mostly listen to them while doing something else simultaneously. Oh, so true.
I understand that.
Yeah. Well, you also need to know how to deal with slow learners. It can also be a challenge if you're anticipating group work. Yeah, and participants can also feel intimidated by technology. Well, hopefully not anymore, but I guess for some this is still an issue.
Those are some great answers.
Yeah, they can.
Go ahead.
Well, there are more instances. I'm sorry. So some of these can be overlapping with other programs, so it can be difficult to reconcile, right? Lack of eye contact. Yeah, so true. Very easy to get tired, and cannot. It's hard to conduct motivating activities, and language can also be a barrier.
Great answers. I particularly like the one I hadn't really thought about it, about the pacing and whether it's a slow learner or just someone that is not their first language, that they need to be able to keep up with that. So I really appreciated that answer as well. Great. Let's see, what about disadvantages to self-study e-learning? Kind of our other option of an e-learning, you're just going to take it at your own pace on the computer or on a mobile device. Go ahead and chat your advantages to that.
Well, first of all, it can be very lonely. Yeah, that's true. Less interaction, so I guess it's a good thing actually that there is less interaction. Unable to get support if necessary. Also, lack of self-organization. Yes, you need to be very self-disciplined. Less interaction, very true. Commitment and discipline, yeah, these are all issues. You cannot get immediate feedback from your trainer, or you cannot fully understand some of the topics that are being taught. It can also be frustrating because you can't ask questions right away, and there is limited interaction with other participants, so you feel isolated, yeah. Lack of connection and timely support. And content also can be a little bit too wide. Little scope for counseling. And it can also be very hard for kinesthetic learners. So some people even think that this is not really a good adult learning method, and that motivation can be another disadvantage. You don't get enough feedback. Lack of peer learning. Yeah, very true.
That's great answers, as well as some of the pros and the cons. And so I think that's part of the considerations for moving the classroom online, that we need to be able to help our clients and our teams be able to navigate and think through, because there are limitations, and there's limitations in the classroom as well, if we really think about it. And so what we need to be able to do is overcome those and pick the best options for what it is that we are trying to teach. All right, some great things. Let's see what I had. Many of them very, very similar to what you had. So on the left, we have live online learning. On the right, I had self-study. So scheduling can be an issue. We talked about that, the different time zones, and when people are working, maybe something that they're doing on the side of their work in addition to, or maybe it's something that they're doing that's part of their work. Well, that's a different way to schedule, right? To schedule it during the workday or after. Then gathering a cohort. And so if I had to deliver this online learning several different times for each of you individually, that would not be very effective or efficient, right? So we had to gather you together at a certain time in order to take it. And if it was a longer course with several of these live online learnings, then we'd have to gather a time and a group of people, wait for a group of people to be able to move through it to be efficient for that facilitator. The timing and commitment of a trainer and a producer. So you see that Anna's helping me to be my producer for this and help me with this, which you need if you're going to have more than a few people on, or you're not as confident on using webinars, and the trainer. So I had to get up and get ready and be in front of you for this. So that could be a disadvantage. Reliability of internet. Several of you have had that. Connectivity issues. Absolutely. I travel around the country in an RV, and so I often have connectivity. I try to them, but sometimes I'm in an area and I don't have them, and I'm sure if you have similar issues, I'm having those issues. And rely on my language. So we had several folks that even saw it in the chat, people asking for things in French. We do have this, the tool that we're going to use later on is available both in French and in English. But this webinar, right, is only happening in one language. I saw that we're going to have the French version of the Engaging Online later in a couple of weeks. And that's one of the disadvantages of live online learning. There's another group right now that's actually developing and delivering a webinar, and they're doing it in both languages at the same time. And so that can happen, but that takes a lot of coordination and can often be a bit confusing or take a little bit longer. That can be one of your the limitations. So let's look at the self-study online. So learner completes everything or pays attention consistently. I had several of you said that. You were talking about, hey, grab everybody's attention. You don't know if they really took it, or if they took the whole thing, or they just hit the space bar and went all the way through it. I'm not sure. There's a lot of things you can do to on online learning to be able to make sure that they do some of those things, but you're not able to tell if they pay attention the whole time. Oftentimes you need to purchase a license, an e-learning authoring layer in order to be able to do the self-study online learning, and so as well as a learning curve associated for developers. That can be a disadvantage. And then sometimes it's hard to convey new or more difficult concepts because you're not able to have that dialogue with the facilitator, or working things through and really being able to have just the dialogue of learning those harder concepts. So if you're not a super fluent reader or a person who's able to digest information on their own very well, sometimes that can be a limitation. And then you just don't get your questions answered. You might get them answered later, but not in real time as you're going by a live professor. And so that's something that can be a limiting factor. So those are some things to consider. You know, I think when I've gone through and tried to convince people to go into one form or another of online learning, you have to be aware of the disadvantages, because they will bring those up, and you'll also encounter them, and you need to be able to mitigate some of those. All right, blending. So what happens then with those disadvantages is you need to think about, okay, we could blend, and you can start to minimize some of those disadvantages and capitalize on some of the advantages. And so we can do create an environment that's the most optimal for what your learning goals are, the environment, the focus of each part of the course. So some options that you could have for blending, and blending is just mixing. So you're going to mix different, and we actually use the acronym MIX in the course that we're using on blended options. So you're going to mix different things together to form your course. And just like you would in a classroom, so you're going to have a classroom, and you're going to have some time where there's some a little bit lecture, maybe there's some activities, maybe there's individual work. You know, there's different things that you mix together in a classroom. You're going to do similar things in here, and in online learning, you can do it as well, because you can make it so that you're using the right learning for purpose. Actually, those thought, creativity, but you're not limited to just one way of training. For instance, you have some live options if you get their questions answered. So I've had things like online hosted office hours. It's great as an instructional, and the other gives that to the learner. So you host a webinar, the trainer will host a webinar, and they can join it if they want to. They can join and ask questions and listen to other people's questions and have a time. Just like you could have time I know at my university they would have open office hours, and the professor would be in. And so you knew between 2 and 3 in the afternoon, you could go and ask your questions about the paper during that time, and he or she would be there. So similar to that, you can open it up online, and that gives them that touch point without having to add a lot of instructional design time work. So you have your live or recorded webinars. So this could be part of a blended learning approach, a recorded webinar later on that somebody could watch and learn from as well. And you could have individual sessions. So setting up a little time to meet online. You can see if you want to. You can your work online through. That was it. To be able to work to some complicated projects, especially in a little bit longer course. There's other options. So we've all seen web-based training. We've seen your one, all that, scenarios, things to click all over. There's a little bit less complicated and less time-consuming ones to develop, similar to the ones developing on Rise that you're seeing about the courses that support this webinar and podcasts. You could do discussion boards and forums. That's one of my favorite ways to learn. College, my post-university experience, my master's, discussion forums were somewhere where it was the richest amount of learning. Not in the class, all folks have outgoing, raise their time, that class, a facility talks with you didn't get stopped at all. Well, and instructional facility post questions, everyone wants to answer questions, and not they need to answer questions fully. They need to back and I'm sorry, breaking. But is it getting better? Some that went down. So question. Is it getting any better?
Mandy, no, it's kind of breaking. I don't know. Why don't you maybe try turning off your video? Let's see if it helps. Because I think it's coming from your side. Thank you.
Thank you. Is this getting any better?
I think so far it's a little bit better, but let's see.
Okay. One of our disadvantages, right? All right. So the discussion boards and forums. I'll go back and start that topic a little bit more. You'd post a question, and every of the participants would thoughtfully answer the question. So think about an environment where everyone could actually get a chance to talk and share. And not only share, but think thoughtfully, be thoughtful about their answer. Some of us don't think very quickly and would like time to process. So a discussion forum allows you that time. And you post your answer, and then you go and post responses to other people's answers. Rich dialogue that would not happen normally in a classroom nor in a group project or those other things. So there's an opportunity there, and those are not hard to put together either. You can do videos, which are either live action with real people and actors or people talking, or you could do an animated video. We've done several of those as well. You can incorporate independent readings, articles that are their papers, other things, independent or group projects. That works very well. And if you've got a cohort together doing a course, they can do a project together and come back. And deliverable submissions, so they can deliver things, projects, submit them, be reviewed, go back and forth, and have question forms. They can submit questions to the whoever's moderating or the facilitator and have those questions asked. So blending allows you to pick and choose little parts of both of the self-study and the live online in order to add the best mix for that topic. So, for instance, what if you think we need to do a hands-on practice of a skill, an actual skill? And somebody said they didn't think you could do that so well online, the actual tangible field experience. So perhaps you have a blend self-study modules that will build knowledge. Then you incorporate the independent practice of the skill. Maybe they go and do the skill and come back. And then online office hours to support them in the skill, and then discussion or maybe a live online session to debrief how it went practicing the skill. So you can send them out. They don't have to be right there doing that live experience. They could be going and go try it and come back. Tell us how it went. You still have that opportunity online. So maybe building knowledge is the goal. And so if that's the case, then maybe they just need a self-study opportunity and an assessment. So typical kind of thing to do a course and then a test. Or maybe they need to change the attitude. Maybe that's the goal. If so, build time in to learn, but also to consider and discuss, perhaps in that discussion forum, so that they can begin to have that changed mindset and changed attitude. So blending can really help to pull down those disadvantages. All right. Let's get your synapses firing and ask a question. In the chat window, you're going to enter your number of your preferred choice. So this is the scenario. You are training managers about managing employees. They need tips and the opportunity to ask specific questions. That's the needs. Here are the options. Is it online one-on-one coaching sessions and downloadable tip sheets, online office hours and a self-study e-learning, or would you choose live online sessions with links to articles? Go ahead in the chat window and enter your number, 1, 2, or 3, which you would choose. All right, I'm seeing good stuff for everything. There's a lot of options for online learning. I see 1s, 2s, and 3s. Would anyone like to share that chose 1? Would anyone like to share why they chose 1? Raise your hand if you would like to share if you chose 1. And are you able to see if anyone raised their hand?
1 second, checking. No, I don't see any hands.
Would you like to share?
I can see some hands actually.
Great.
Yeah, lots of them.
Oh, Hina.
All right.
So for those who are searching, yeah. So for attendees who are searching for the hands to raise their hand, the button for that function is at the bottom of the participants panel.
sorry, do we want to pick somebody and unmute them?
Hina, would you like to be first?
You can pick.
I think one, because I think it encourages interaction more. Although number two is similar in the sense that you have online office hours, but then online one-on-one coaching session can maybe encourage interaction between the participant, between the training manager and the the remote employees, and it can be a bit more helpful, I think, because you're prepared and downloading something and reading off, and then deciding where you're confused and what questions you would want to ask. I personally think that would be a better option. The self-study learning is just it raises more questions, and yeah, I personally prefer number one.
That's a great answer. Thank you. Yes, you have the tip sheets right there and have the opportunity to ask all of your questions during that coaching session and not leave so much room for misunderstandings or misinterpretations. I think that one is very helpful. I think that I actually voted as the most helpful. I think the downside of it is that it's a little bit time consuming for that facilitator or that trainer to have all of those one-on-one coaching sessions, and not everyone may need it. And it might delay some people who are near the end from getting the information and their questions answered. But I agree with you. I think that's a very, very helpful answer. Thank you so much for that response. How about someone that picked number two?
I see Deshani is raising hands. So Deshani, how did you vote?
Yes, I think.
Deshani?
Yes, I think because if the learners can download the tip sheets, then they can over and over they can go through the tip sheets, and also if there is any misunderstandable things, they can clear it off.
That's great. You picked number one too, it sounds like. Very good. All right. Okay, put your hand down if you did number one, and then put your hand up if you picked the number two. I got an answer on number two.
I see that David raising his hand.
Managers might come late, and probably they have been assigned other duties to do. Probably it might complicate with some. Some might be on leave when the session might be studying. I feel also probably they might not be successful. That's a question session, and they also study more when you prefer download type sheet compared to online office hours. Because office hours, they are also working on other duties and responsibilities they are supposed to do. Hello?
Okay. Those are some great reasons. Those are some great reasons.
Pardon?
Those are some great reasons and some great considerations as well when people are working, when people are available. Very good. Thank you. All right. How about someone who chose number three?
I see Elizabeth is raising hand. Elizabeth, did you vote for number three?
Yes. Good morning,
good morning,
everybody.
Hello.
Yes, I chose number three because I think having a live online session will allow you to discuss with many managers at the same time, and it will help you also to answer questions that can help the answer to your questions, to the questions you will provide, can also help other managers in the same room, and that maybe did not think about the same questions. And you can also help them to think about some challenges that they have not thought about before. So I think it's more useful for everybody to assist online session. And also sometimes when you are alone, you cannot think about some questions or challenges. And once one person just talk about something, some situation, that gives you some idea, and you say, okay, I want to know more about this aspect and the other aspect. And at the same time, having links, giving them links at the end to learn more or to know more about the topic, we also help them to stay connected with what you have exchanged during the live online session. That's why I thought I chose number 3.
Very, very good answer and very thoughtful considerations. As you see, I think all of you had great answers, and I think all of these are very valid options. It depends on looking at some other considerations, but I agree that all 3 things could work, and you could see that it was a little bit of a live opportunity and a little bit of a self-study opportunity combined. My personal pick, in case you were curious, would have been number 2. Though I think number 1 and number 3 are great options as well. And I thought your reasons for picking number 1 and number 3 were very, very valid. I would pick number 2 for a couple of reasons. One, the self-study portion would be a little bit more interactive. So in e-learning, you can have a little bit more interaction with the information. You can test people. You can have them apply things. You can have them being interactive with the information in a self-study environment as opposed to a tip sheet or an article, which is going to be a little bit more just something that they can have, which is valuable, but it's not interactive. And then the online office hours, I was thinking you could have some of that near to the beginning of their experience with the information and then have them several times throughout. So as people started trying to manage remote employees, then they could and came up with a new situation or something like that, they could join a session further in. Maybe there's a session a month from now. Maybe there's a session 3 weeks later. Maybe there's one right now at the beginning to get their initial questions answered. You could have them spaced out. So as questions come up, people could join. And then you can also, I think it was Elizabeth that said, the live online session allows people to hear what other people's questions were and be able to learn from each other. And so you could have that as well as they join. So that would be kind of my choice on it, but all of you had great reasons, and all of those would work to get that. So I see in the chat window, the self-study e-learning doesn't have a very high on-the-job transference. I think it definitely can, especially with topics that they need. So when you have that, especially if you couple that with something that has more interaction with a facilitator, they're going to be able not only to have the tools to go forward and practice it and do it on the job, but they can also come back to that self-study e-learning or something else like a downloadable tip sheet or something like that. They can come back to it and have it, interact with it again to figure out what it is that they missed as they were going and trying it on their own. So I think adding that practical experience into it and making sure that it's applicable along the way is definitely critical. All right, great answers. Thank you. And I actually learned a little bit thinking through it as well with you. All right. In the everyone put your hands down first, and then put your hand up, raise your hand if you have been asked for a quick answer on how to convert a classroom-based course to a virtual course. Love to see if anybody joins me in being asked this several times.
Well, we have several from Katie, Natalia, Juveria. So who would like to go first? Maybe Katie. Okay, Katie, you can speak now. Tell us your story. Katie?
Yes?
You can speak now. Please share your story. Thank you.
They just asked me to do some capacity building from, in the learning. But I'm in the process to design the course to do that, and I'm asking, I have some questions about, who will help me, with the IT to put that, in the webinar, and I'm working on that. Not yet, but
all right, great.
The upcoming January, and I'm do that. But I'm still some questions that
great, thank you, Katie. I see Natalia is also raising her hand.
Yes, my name is Natalia.
Yes, Natalia, you can speak now.
Yes, thank you. I'm from Kyiv, Ukraine, and our project conducted a lot of training activities before COVID-19. So we switched to online format extremely quickly. We started our first webinars in 2 or 3 weeks after the lockdown started. And actually, we break our courses into small pieces, like 1.5 hour long each. We work on quality of presentations, so it's to ensure that they are really understandable and suitable for online format. Then we conducted training of trainers to teach our team to work online. And we announced this online training campaign around our market players. We were quite successful, I would say. Now I manage like 5 complex online schools on different subjects simultaneously. And this format helped us not just improve quality of our learning programs, but also solve many other tasks, like we collected a huge database of our market players, just conducting online registrations to online course. Thank you.
Yes, you've gotten a great head start on it, and you were able to respond quickly. And that was something that a lot of us were struggling to do, I'm sure, as the responses and the requests came in very quickly. But it sounds like you've actually been able to make even better progress on things like gathering your database and really expanding it in the COVID-19 crisis. And I think that that's been a huge win, is the moving on to the virtual learning and just being able to expand your reach. So thank you so much for sharing that as well. So if you're like me and Natalia and Ketty and Adriano, who raised their hand on this, and I've got some others that chatted in the window, Nancy and VJ and Ghislaine, we were asked to quickly convert, and they wanted to know an answer. And so we've come up with a tool that you can use, and it's going to be available in both English and French for you in the thank you email. So you'll be getting it. You do not need to write all this down or capture it. It will be all there for you. A tool that you can do, simple 2-pager, that you're able to sit down with your team, sit down with your client, sit down and just understand what they need and be able to kind of quickly get on the same language with them. And so first you need to understand the needs in order to choose the best option or options. So the tool has 2 sides, as I said, it's 2-pager, and the first one has some things to think through and some common definitions. I'll show it to you a little bit more closely on the next few slides. And then the other side are a set of questions that you can use as a dialogue to start to begin to understand what it is that they need and what the best options would be. So the first thing is determining the needs gives valuable insight into the conversion options. And so this is some of these things that we looked at on the very first screen, some of those advantages to online learning. And so understanding which of these is the biggest push for them will help you understand better what recommendations to make. And so just like we had different people pick different parts of those blended learning options, and all of them are valid, you had a specific situation probably in your mind when you were thinking of it, and so that swayed which option you would choose. And so what you want to do is gather that information, a little needs analysis to understand what best to do. So here are things like the contingency weather and the scaling and those types of things. So just a way to dialogue on that. We've already talked about that. The next section is getting you on the same page to understand what they think of as the different options for learning, as well as what your understanding of the different options. So I made a little table that's got the three, the live online, self-study, and the blended, and a little bit of a description, a couple examples, and then just pretty much one pro and one con to it so that they can kind of get an idea about what you're talking about, what you're thinking of, and what some just common advantages and disadvantages are. You can have a discussion. Then the next thing is, like to hear from you in the chat window. Let's list, and several of you talked about costs on both sides of the equation. So first, in the chat window, list costs to classroom-based learning. List all the things so that that will go into your cost structure for classroom-based learning. Go ahead in the chat. And yes, you will get this tool in the thank you email from registering, both in English and in French. Oh yes, feed those participants. Rent the training venue. Very good.
Also doing IT support. You have to pay for travel, training materials, the venue itself, the LMS platform.
So it can get costly having classroom-based training, especially if travel is involved or if you're used to feeding. I see meals and feeding. I know that's a very popular thing to provide the food, especially when people travel in. I've had that a little bit more in other countries than particularly here, but yes, you don't have the space to do it internally, or renting that space, absolutely. Printing, that could be costly for sure.
Yeah, teaching instructors.
It adds up.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Good. All right. So let's now switch to your cost for virtual learning.
Yeah, so internet connection, computer, IT support, LMS platform, having a good camera, microphone if needed, course fees if you're charging, web platform. Yeah, you also need to provide a follow-up. So the main costs include conference tools like Zoom, WebEx, yeah, so everything related to the internet connection.
Great.
And the platform.
Great. Great answers, guys. And I saw one answer came in later on the top one, especially the cost to the loss of work time. So that can happen, that intangible cost, right, of your worker not being there to be able to work. And if they have to travel, there's extra time there, right? So they can't do that. So I thought that was a really interesting one. Yes, you do need to make sure your training materials are more detailed when it's virtual because you don't have the benefit of the explanation, right, behind it. All right, great answers. All right, so some of the costs. we need to make sure that we think through them, because I think that some people feel that have a very strong opinion that one or the other is either classroom-based or online are expensive. And they have in their mind, one of them is very expensive and one is not. And actually, people have different views on that, but they're not considering all the costs. So if you're going to think in cost as an issue, and I heard somebody, I forget who it was, maybe it was Natalia or Ketty when they were answering about being asked, talked about the cost. And you need to think through all of the different costs that you might not be considering when you're comparing, if cost is a really big deal. So I listed some of those different cost options here just for thinking through. So, you know, the maintenance and tracking of the training, those things, we don't think about that a lot. A lot of you mentioned the classroom supplies and the AV rental, but I didn't see as much the software licensing. Well, maybe it was with the WebEx and the Zoom, but perhaps the authoring licensing or the procurement process. So bringing the time to buy a new LMS or to buy the software to make the e-learning. So these are different costs that can be an investment into the training, but can also, you know, be heavy. And so what you want to think through, though, is you want to think through them over a period of 2 years, because there's a time, you know, you invest a lot of money up front in e-learning, and then you use it for a long time, as opposed to classroom-based learning, which the costs are continuing, right? Every time you have a training, you have to print off the documents. Every time you have training, you have to fly in the trainer. Those types of things are ongoing. And so if you looked at it just a little snapshot in time, you might not get a very accurate view of what the training really costs. So look at it over a 2-year period. Determine the total learning hours by multiplying the duration of the course by the number of learners who will take the course over that 2-year period. Then, by method, classroom, and maybe you're just thinking about different types of virtual learning, add all the training costs and divide by those learning hours, and then you'll get the cost per learner. Then use that comparison in order to make a decision on your investment. That's going to give you a little bit more tangible cost structure than just thinking, oh, it's, you know, this amount of money to buy the new e-learning, or it's this amount of money to host a training. You're looking at it a little bit more holistically. And then this is my favorite part of the tool. It's questions to have that discussion. And I was asked to create this because, you know, we had people going out and doing some of the needs analysis that weren't necessarily instructional designers or trainers. And so they needed a quick tool to be able to ask questions, gather information, and be able to help with the decision making on what considerations to use. And so you see on the left-hand side, you see questions. And then the other 3 columns, one's for live online, one's for blended, and one's for the self-paced. And you can see answers. So as you're discussing and asking the question, see where their answer is kind of aiming towards and circle that as you're going. And so whichever column you have the most circles in is probably then the one that you want to go with for your recommendations and narrowing down your recommendations on what type of virtual learning you would do. If you've got circles in all the columns, go for the blended learning and use this information then to be able to best pick the different options that you blend. If you look at a few of them, how often does this course need to be offered? That first one. So if it's only occasionally, then a live online would be great because you can do that quickly and you can host it and it can have lots of interaction and then you could host it a little bit later every once in a while, but you don't need to do it all the time. If you're not sure and you're going to really need to offer it quite frequently, probably not a good idea to have it live online because that's going to require a lot of scheduling and a lot of time with the facilitator, but it's also not going to be as consistent, which leads into the next question. How often does the course content change? And how important is consistency in the message and delivery? So do we need this going to be the same information all the time? It's always true. It's never changed. It doesn't need to be customized. Great. You can put it in an e-learning or a tip sheet or something like that, and they can use it, and it's great. It's going to be always valuable. It's really important that you do that consistency in the messaging. For instance, that training that I said I flew all over the country for and was in the airport at least every other day. Some days I was literally in the airport twice a day. Did not even get a hotel room in the next city. The consistency in messaging and delivery was extremely important for that. So they only had 2 people doing that training because they wanted the same messaging each time. But they also wanted the personal touch. So that's why we were flying around doing this. And granted, it was quite a while ago. It was about 10 years ago. But the consistency in messaging can be well achieved if you have it in a self-study learning because it's always the same information. If you want to be able to customize it for the audience, interact, then you want to do online, live. Let's look at a few of the other questions. Let's see. Well, a lot of you talked about the comfort with technology. So we agreed originally in that the disadvantages to live online is that some people need some hand-holding. And usually they can figure out the self-study a little bit better because they can take their time finding it. If you're having a rough time getting on a webinar, it could be over before you figure out how to get on. And let's see, how much time is available before the course needs to launch? So if you have had requests like I have that people want something up next week, you're going to probably want to go ahead and do live online and convert as quickly as you can. I think Natalia was talking about that they took their original training and they just broke it down into smaller chunks for webinars and started delivering it right away. That's absolutely valid, absolutely met the need, it sounds like, for what you needed, and that's important. But maybe you've got a little bit longer and you can build something that's a little bit more interactive and durable and longer lasting and put it into the self-study. That's a little bit about how you use this tool, and it looks like, I'm not sure, I saw some links in there, maybe Anna's putting it in there, or she's definitely going to send it out. So you can have this tool and use it. If you have feedback on it, I'd love to hear that as well. And it'll be in English and French for you. And feel free to use the smile emoticon if you think this is going to be helpful for you. I'd love to see it. And we're going to do a couple more considerations, and then we'll have a few minutes for questions. So, like the ancient builders of Stonehenge, they need to think through things in order to complete their project and be able to do it well. So before you run headlong into developing something, you want to think about a few other considerations. So the first thing is timing. How long is it going to take you to procure a solution? How long will it take to implement, to develop, maybe even how to learn how to use it? Think through those types of things as you're getting ready to embark on a project. Also think about the openness. Think about how open the content owner, a designer, other stakeholders are in the format of delivery. So that's why I started off that needs analysis with kind of giving them some options for delivery so that they're a little bit more, their eyes are more open to what options there are. So hopefully they're more open. How about the benefits? What benefits are there in changing the delivery? So that goes back to those original advantages and helping people to see that. And how about expertise? Do you have expertise within the group, the team, to deliver on it? So maybe you need to go and get a training on how to deliver online learning or how to develop it. Those are things that you need to think through in your time frame as well. Accessibility. So we talked about the internet accessibility, but then also sight, hearing, fine motor skills, those types of things. If you have any part of your audience who's disabled, you need to think about that as you're thinking about your options. Then gender inclusivity. So somebody mentioned that earlier, that's a great reason for moving on the classroom online, is that we can have then women and everyone included in an audience who may not be able to be co-located together generally, or maybe have different responsibilities at different times during the day that would exclude them, but now you can include them. And we have a training guide supplement on that will help you as well through that, as well as one on fragile and conflict-afflicted situations, which we talked about as being one of the advantages that online will help with that, because you might have some travel or mobility restrictions, and that will help through that. All right, one last question for you. So, considerations for hosting an LMS. Oh, my poll did not seem to be working. Let's just go ahead. All right. So you might need to host it if you have something online. And you talked about webinars, the Zoom or the WebEx, those types of things. And Karen is a great webinar on how to use those. And we have that information up on that course that's online. And you might also need to get an LMS. Not always necessary, but because there's other ways to host and track, but you want to think through that if you're going to do especially self-study. So you want to think through this expense, setup and maintenance, flexibility and ownership, and ability for support, the scalability for growth, customization, and branding rights of your LMS. And there's three main options are software and based, which is something that you buy, you own the license to, and it can be very expensive, possibly, but it gives you the most amount of customization. You can brand it, you kind of own it, you have full ownership of it, but you need to do the support for it as well. There's cloud-based, and this is where you're sharing possibly space with others, and so you don't have to own that LMS yourself and support it, and even technologically support it, and you're able to put things up. This can be cheaper. You might have to share branding on it, might not be able to fully customize it where you want to, but you probably can get up much more quickly. And then there's also shared online platforms. So this is where you put your course up where other people also have their course, and again, your branding and your customizations probably not as high, and maybe your setup though is going to be much more quick because they already have it all. You just kind of plug and play your stuff there. And so I won't go into a huge amount of detail on LMS. That's a whole nother story, and it's not something I'm particularly an expert on, but you definitely need to think about that before you start designing and developing, knowing where is your stuff going to live. You want to think through that. All right, and then just a few logistical considerations. So you want to think about tracking. Do you need to track it? Can people just take the course, or do you need to know exactly who took it, how long they were on it, what grade did they get, where are they from, when did they enter, all those different things. You need to decide how much you really need to track and be able to think through that. Do you need to offer certification? So is this something that's originally you had in the classroom and they got a certificate and they need that professionally, or something you need to think through that? Accessibility, we talked about that a little bit before. That can be a very logistical consideration. Different softwares allow for that accessibility, and some do not. And I know that we've gotten through some times developing and realizing far too late that a certain thing does not have the tags on the pictures or the ability to do some of the things who are visually impaired, for instance, and had to backtrack. Appropriateness. So is it going to match the needs of the learner, or is it a literate audience? Does it need to be more visual? Those types of things, thinking about your audience as you go. Grouping, so we talked about that before a little bit with the cohort. Is it better? Do they need to learn in an audience? So could it be all online self-paced study, but still you want to group people so they could have discussions, that type of thing. Scheduling goes along with the cohort and your trainer and availabilities. And then translation. That's a very important thing for us, especially with ISC. And that's why we've gone with a lot of the self-paced learnings in RISE, because it's pretty easy to pull out the information, translate, and put it back in. So that's been one of the reasons why we've gone with that. All right. I think Anna's been collecting questions, or if you have a question, you could raise your hand. I'm happy to answer it. We have a few minutes left. Anna, did we have any questions? Okay.
I think so. Maybe if you have more questions, please raise your hand and we will give you the floor. We have just a couple of minutes left, 8 minutes to be more precise. So if you have questions, please raise your hand now. I see that Elizabeth has a question. Elizabeth, please go ahead.
Yes, my question is about the kind of what can we use? What can you advise us on using? Is it a software or cloud-based system or online? What is your take? Sorry, what is your take on that? What could you advise for low budget?
Are you talking about for your LMS or
yes, for the LMS?
For the LMS, there are free LMS out there, like Moodle. Is one that we've actually used quite a bit. We actually used it as the base for the GLC courses before we got on the World Bank's OLC. So that's an option. There are free ones out there to be able to get going rather quickly.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
I see that Ray. Go ahead.
So good day. I'm kind of starting off from a different point than most others, where I've never developed a course before, but I've written 2 textbooks, and I'm trying to develop course material around the textbooks. I don't know if you've got any guidance, because I'm finding that I'm kind of starting from scratch and having to rethink the entire topic.
Yes, a training is very different than a textbook. So often when we develop training, we start with something like a textbook or a manual or something like that that has the content in it. We are going to be offering an instructional design course at blended learning online, using many of the different blends that I've discussed today. And that might be a very good option for you. Or partnering with an instructional designer to walk through how to do that, especially even with 1 or 2 of your topics, and then maybe you'll get the hang of it to move on. But it is quite different to move it and bring it alive, right, and make it applicable and put in those adult learning principles into it. So I think that would be a great thing, to partner with an instructional designer. To have them walk you through that a couple of times, or to take the instructional design course.
And I also wanted to remind everyone that in February, we're going to have Yelena Avery, who will share experience about how to work with subject matter experts. So I think this course will also be beneficial for instructional designers and for anyone who is managing courses. So please make sure to join us in February as well. I think it's kind of related. All right, any more questions? I see that Abba has raised a hand. Abba, go ahead.
Yes, a lot of my clients are women, and they're also illiterate. And so now they don't speak a lot of English for some of them. So it was easy to deliver the training face-to-face. But now with COVID, how do you train illiterates with this online? Because they don't know much about the technology. And even if you train them on that, how would they be able to communicate well with the online training? And what methods can be used to train them if you can't use a face-to-face training?
That's difficult, right? Especially if they don't have access to the technology to be able to do it. So if you're able to get the technology to them, one thing that we've done is make animated videos or a video, either, but doing things that are a lot more visual. And so a lot of the animated videos that we've developed, Karen and I use Video Scribe. It's pretty low cost to buy. It's not that difficult to learn to do, and you can do it a lot. Use tons of visuals to tell your story and do a voiceover with it if you want to. And so it would kind of be like standing at a whiteboard and you're drawing what it is that you're trying to explain. So they're getting to see it and hearing it. That might be a good option. And something like, I've done like somebody going in, a coach going into the rural area with an iPad and showing the Video Scribe, showing that animated video on their device that they bring into the situation. That's just one option. There's a lot of them there. I know it's definitely an issue to see through on many different levels, but it's definitely possible to do things for a lower literacy audience.
Yeah. So how do I get to know about that? Is there any to develop an online form? Sorry.
To do those, the Video Scribe is the one that we found that we like to do, and I'll put that in there. I think it was very cheap to buy, and it didn't take me very long to learn it. That was just one option. We could shoot video, and what I liked about the COVID age is now we don't have to have high professional videos that we used to think we needed to have, right? We used to think you had to have this big production crew and had to be this very expensive thing to make a video. People are fine with the video you take on your phone now because we're all used to it, right? We're all at home, we're all doing the same thing. And so there's a lot of ways that you could do it, and it does not need to be costly in order to get that feel of interaction with them, as long as you can get it into their hands, or bring in a projector and a screen and projecting it for a group is another option. You can make it low tech and bring in a picture book. I've done picture books before, and have somebody come in and just walk them through the picture book. That's low tech.
Okay.
About 1 more minute.
Yeah, I'm sorry to interrupt. We have exactly 1 minute, so I think it's time to wrap up. So if you have any more questions, please feel free to reach out to us. And I have posted, and we'll do it again, the link to the survey. Do you have any other comments that you would like to say?
I just wanted to point people back. You can take this whole course. This was just a little bit of highlights from the course, so you can take it. It's available now, and I think Anna can send you the link and walk you through it. So you can take the whole course, go back and think through it again. Reach out to me if you have any questions. I'm happy to answer them and think through things with you. And I really enjoyed our time together. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you all for joining, and happy holidays. We will reach out to you again probably next week. We'll send the recording and handouts as we promised in both English and French. But again, it's going to be most likely next week already. And if we don't speak to you again, then happy holidays, happy New Year, and we'll see you again in January 2021. And we hope that it's going to be a much better year for everyone. Everyone wants to go back to face now. Right? So we need to wrap up with this virtual learning. Happy New Year, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.